Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I just watched Orville Season 3, Episode 2. And at first, I was a little concerned with this episode. The first 15 minutes or so dragged on pretty slow, nothing really to grab onto. The new character, the Admiral that they introduced, wasn't great. I didn't really feel his chemistry with Dr. Finn at first, so I was a little worried. I still do think this episode was not quite as tight as the last one was. Still an incredible episode of the Orville, still a phenomenal, just regular episode and great Star Trek, really. But it still wasn't quite as tight, and that's more because the last episode was character driven. This one was plot driven, so it's hard to compare them. I just prefer character stuff, but if you prefer plot stuff, this may be your preferred episode out of the two. Completely fine, could be equal in that sense at least. But I still did very much enjoy it after that, about that 15-minute mark, and the concepts that it introduced after that mark were well worth the 15 slow minutes at the beginning. I will take those 15 minutes 100 times over to experience the glory that was the last 45 minutes of the show. It was fucking awesome. But before I go any further, there will be spoilers, so spoiler alert. So the episode sees the Orville getting into some trade negotiations with the Krill finally after the whole Kalon situation drove them together. And an admiral comes on board who had a previous relationship with Dr. Finn, who is going to negotiate with the Krill to get safe passage through the Krill space to an unexplored area of the galaxy that the Union had never been to before. And since these people, the Union, is primarily exploration ships, this is what they want more than anything else. They're not military. And I think that they show that so many times, especially at the end of the episode, which I'll get to eventually. But they continually show that exploration is their top priority. And I love that about this show and these characters. It's showing humanity at their very best. Their curiosity means more than anything else. And I think that's a very admirable trait that makes this and Star Trek so special to me. And it just really excels in that sense of telling the difference between a military and an exploration force. So it totally makes sense why they would want to negotiate so fervently with the Krill to get this permission to travel through their space and explore this new part of the galaxy. Makes sense why they'd give up that mining rights to that planet and all that. But while they're negotiating with the Krill, they mention that there's a space in that area that they call the Expanse, which is a vast area free of stars, free of anything, any life. It's just this big black nothingness. Now, the Krill called this the Shadow Realm and say that there are demons there. But of course, the Orville, they don't believe them, assume it's something to do with their crazy religion, honestly, and they press forward anyway. But once they get to the Expanse, that's when things get exciting. And it's a really cool inverse that they did, where they show this vast nebula with thousands of stars, cool planets, plenty of things to explore right before going into the Expanse. This colorful landscape going for light years upon light years to this vast empty void going on forever, it seems like. Very cool contrast to do right next to each other. And I love the idea of the Expanse. Of course, something like that could exist in space and probably does, and would be a very interesting thing to explore. But once they get into the Expanse, there's a distress signal. They answer it, this weird organic-like spaceship. It sprays some stuff in the Admiral's face, and the Admiral by this point had started to grow on me. I really didn't like him at the beginning, but by this point, I liked his character enough to care what happened to him. And he starts to transform, becomes an alien of some kind, and starts attacking the ship, takes out all the power, and it becomes a horror episode. And they did the horror aspects of it very, very well, especially with the low lighting, and the aliens that the crew became once they were converted by the Admiral were frightening. Their designs were incredible, how their jiggery, fast movement, some impressive CGI that must have gone into it to make them move like that. They're fast, they're quick, they're deadly, and they just want to convert and breed. The whole thing, that species, that distress call was a mating call, as they say later on. And so, yeah, really like that. And then they have to negotiate with these new aliens at the end of the episode. Claire figures out a way to kill them all because their immune systems are shot to hell by the conversion into aliens, so the common cold would kill them all. So they have this very good Doctor Who, I have to give them a chance moment. And I love that moment. I love that they brought in that type of morality. It's very much showing that they're explorers first over military. It's like, hey, I have the power to destroy you, but I don't want to. Please take my mercy and go. And I think it was a very powerful moment. And seeing the Admiral speak again was pretty powerful, and his whole we will go, but not forever. It was a very powerful moment. I really did enjoy. So they managed to get the aliens off the ship, and then they leave Expanse and they go back to Union space, and they're like, yeah, let's not go back to that area of space for a while. And that's how the episode ended. It was very, very well done. Again, not quite as tight from a character perspective, but the concept of the Expanse with the aliens, horror film aspect of it was incredibly well done. And it felt like a horror film. Like, it wasn't cliche jump scares that you'd normally see in a show like this when they tried to do horror. It looks like that genuine effort was put in to make it seem as frightening as possible. And the whole idea of a truth behind the myth was a very interesting one, because a lot of sci-fi shows often depict, human myths. There's some truth behind it, whether or not the gods are aliens from Greek mythology or whatnot. And so these demons that the Krill believed in were actually self-replicating alien species that mate with other species to propagate their species. There is a truth behind the myth. And so that's something that explorers like this, dealing with so many other cultures, need to take into account more than the Orville did, is because there's usually a reason such vast mythologies are built, and there's enough truth behind them to be cautious, at least. And I think that was a very cool concept, not the main theme of it, of course, but a cool side bit. And the bug transformation, there's one scene where they really show the transformation from a guy in the galley, an ensign who transforms into the bug-like monsters, and that transformation, I feel like it was done with a combination of practical effects and CGI, and it looked beautiful, and it looked frightening, and the boys' reaction, Marcus and Ty reacting to this whole situation, very well done, and it was frightening. I do think that Marcus and Ty should have run before they did, but I mean, they had to see what happened, so, that's a bit of a movie suspend your disbelief moment, but it was still very visceral what happened to that crew member and all the other crew members, because we don't know how many of them actually died in this encounter. We only really followed the main bridge crew, the high-ranking officers and their kids, so who knows how many of their crew actually died. Was it dozens or hundreds? We don't actually know, so it's kind of a cool concept to see like how much loss that they've really endured from this, and they're still willing to give them a Doctor Who like chance, because it is their crew at the end of the day, even after everything that happened to them. And one of my favorite encounters with the monsters throughout the episode was when Isaac met one for the first time. How they both just stood there, the monster looking Isaac over, with these cool head movements, not really knowing what to do with him, because I doubt a species like this, whose technology is based on organic material, had ever come across a completely cybernetic being. And it was kind of cool that this thing had enough intelligence to recognize what Isaac was, but also enough intelligence to be curious about it. There was a level of curiosity to this, so there's a level of intelligence still to them, which was reaffirmed at the end of the episode when the Admiral was able to speak again. And I think that was specifically used to set up that they still had intelligence beneath it all, and led towards Claire being right to give them a chance and try to talk to them. I think it was very, very well done. And the whole idea of Chekhov's gun, something that you show at the beginning of an episode or a movie to kind of get the audience an idea that something is there. And so in this episode, there was Chekhov's ring with the wedding ring was made of a rare material. And so they were able to locate the Admiral. They set that up pretty well. They made sure you knew that it was on his finger, and it wasn't overdone. A lot of times when they do stuff like this, they're like, hey, look, I got my ring's on, and they can overdo it, but they did just the right amount where it didn't come across as pandering. You didn't really think, oh, they're setting this up for something. They did it subtly enough that you knew it was there, but you didn't like, how is this going to tie in later? I think it was very, very well done. And yeah, just so many examples of why these people are explorers and not military members. And I just love that about the show and about Star Trek. And then the final moments with Isaac and Claire together in that like bistro place. I don't know if that was a holodeck or not, or the simulation as it's called in this show. I don't know what that was, but that encounter was great because you show that Isaac still cares for Claire in his own way. And I really like that couple from season 2, and I really hope they do get back together. And this episode kind of hints that they might, because they have great chemistry, and it's a great concept, especially with how unhuman he is, that they have an ability to share so much together and have such chemistry together. And his conversation with the Admiral at the beginning of the episode was like, do you feel like you're less without her? and it's his way of processing it, but he does love her in his own way, and it's a very brilliantly written story arc for both of them and a very brilliantly written relationship between them, and I really look forward to seeing how that evolution goes in the future. So again, this is an incredible episode of The Orville, a phenomenal episode of sci-fi television in general, and I really look forward to the season continuing at this pace, and mainly because it's plot driven rather than character driven. I would give it a lower score, but it's equivalently as good at doing the plot aspect of it with the concepts of the horror and the aliens to how good it was with the characters in the last episode, that I'm going to have to give it an equivalent score of last week. So I'm going to have to give this episode an 8 out of 10 again, which is a lot for me. I know for a lot of other people that doesn't seem like a lot, but for me, I'm very stringent on every single number I give, and 8 is incredible for me. I don't give 8s or 9s or 10s to anything. So I really love this episode. I can't wait each week for the next one. And I just hope that The Orville gets renewed for another season, because we need good sci-fi like this. There's a reason Star Trek was so popular for so many generations, because it inspires us to look to the future and look to ourselves to be the best that we can be, and believe in science and our ability to understand the universe. I think it's incredibly well done and incredibly poignant at this time, especially with how bad the regular Star Trek series is doing at this time, the 6 of them that are out there. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.